Namaste and welcome back, fellow humans, to vlog number 3 of my spiritual journey. Today I just want to briefly touch on Jim Carrey. Talk about Jim Carrey a little bit. Jim Carrey just recently gave an interview at a fashion show, and he said the most random things I think any human being has ever said in an interview, with the exception of maybe Charlie Sheen. But that guy was on drugs and doing some crazy stuff. But Jim Carrey said some random stuff and it was labeled crazy, and I think that he was labeled crazy incorrectly. See, Jim Carrey, I think, has gone through his own spiritual journey, and one of the things that happens when you touch your higher self, when you travel up into your higher consciousness, when you look down at your old self, you begin to realize how fake that self is, and how it wants things out of habit, and it believes itself to be important, and it wants to lift itself up to be and feel important. And when you touch that sacred self, that higher self, you begin to feel a peace and a joy unlike anything that you could ever even imagine. And when you leave that space and you fall back into your lower self, because it does happen that way, you go up and down. I mean, it's not, you're never just permanently up there. That takes years and years and years of practice, I think. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I think that there are people that might be able to reach that level and stay there. I just don't know the quality of such a mind and what it takes to stay up there. But my point is that at some point Jim Carrey came back down to his Jim Carrey self, and he realized that nothing that he has, nothing that he can ever do or accomplish or achieve or become, is ever going to give him that kind of peace and that kind of love and that kind of joy like he receives when he's there in his higher self. And that higher self depends on nothing. It doesn't depend on anything. It's unchanging. And that, what's frustrating is, once you see that, once you experience life from that unchanging self, and you move back down into that changing, that part of you that's constantly changing, you become very unsatisfied with that way of living. You realize how fake you are. And if you are fake, I'm not saying that I'm being a fraud and I'm not being myself with you, but that identity, when you see how fake that is, you start looking at other people, and it's not judgmental, but you start seeing their suffering, you start seeing their fakeness, the things that they do to lift themselves up above other people, the things that they do to make themselves comfortable around certain people, to be liked and accepted by other people. And I think Jim Carrey is just fed up with that. To be honest, he's probably at that point where he's like, this whole life that I used to live is bullshit. Going to all these shows and wanting people to like me for my, and being famous for that reason too, so I can get that fame. He said in an interview he wanted to get fame out of the way. I think he realized how fake all that was, and now he's just tired of it. He's tired of being fake. He wants to be real. He wants to show who he really is. But I see it just like when we get a new car. Like, for example, when I got my first Nissan, I fell in love with that Nissan truck. And anytime that I went and talked to somebody about a car, and somebody said, I was thinking about getting a new car myself, what am I going to suggest? I'm not going to say you should go get a Toyota. You should go get a Hyundai. The Hyundais are good. I don't know anything about Hyundais. All I know is about Nissan. And so I'm excited to tell people about Nissan. And maybe people don't want to hear it. And they might think that I'm a Nissan freak. I'm crazy for talking about Nissan. Well, it's the same thing. Once you reach that level, and you come back down, the mind believes that it knows what it's talking about. The mind is excited about that, and it wants to share that with everyone, but not everybody wants to hear that. Not everyone's ready to hear that kind of truth, and so they're going to label you crazy. And that's the state that Jim Carrey is in right now, is that state where, first of all, he doesn't give a shit about it anymore. He wants to be himself, and he longs for that. And so he's going to have a little bit of resistance to this thing that we call normal, and he knows that it's fake. We made ourselves, we made this world for ourselves, and we take it way too serious. And I think one of the things that I've heard him say in several interviews is that he came into this world, and I reached this truth, and it's so it's a relief to hear somebody else say this. You come into this world. I didn't have a name. My name, Leonardo, my mother gave that to me. But behind that, I already existed. I just didn't call myself Leonardo. I could have been anything else. I could have been, Gerardo, Julio. I could have been any other name, but I was given this name, Leonardo, and that identity isn't really who I am. That's an identity that I just accepted as me, but that's not me. And that's where Jim Carrey is right now. He knows that Jim Carrey is a fake identity that he created for himself, that it comes with all these likes and dislikes and experience and everything, but he's dropping that. He's dropping Jim Carrey so that he can live a life of that, through that higher consciousness, that being that is nameless, that being that is changeless, that being that is timeless, that being that is that just is. That just is. And I think Jim Carrey has surrendered to that, and I think that's wonderful. So Jim, congratulations, and thank you for being brave enough to open up and be yourself. Thank you. Really. That's going to give us a lot of us the courage to do the same, to follow in those footsteps, and be brave enough to be ourselves and call bullshit when it's there. So thank you. Anyway, fellow humans, thank you all for joining me on this 7-minute rant. I will see you next time.